Sometimes when you get your bank exports or open up your own manual spreadsheet, it might be a little ugly. There's some weird formatting, maybe inconsistent dates, and honestly, it's not very usable. As in, you cannot use this to track your expenses or do any kind of reporting because then it wouldn't be accurate. And I know a lot of corporate employees that will do this kind of thing manually, but you are smarter than that. So I'll show you a framework to make sure you are covering all your bases without going line by line. In the end, you'll have clean, consistent, standardized data all ready for you to review. The idea here is that we are making this data usable. It's absolutely important to have good data before doing any automations. Okay, here's my framework. Great acronym to remember when cleaning is the word FIBS. This stands for format, invalid, blanks, and standardization. So I'll show you how we use this when we're cleaning an example data set. This special checklist for cleaning messy data is also in my automation starter pack, which you can get for free on my website. I'll link it below. Now let me show you how to use this to clean our sheet. First though, let's get rid of any columns we don't care about. You obviously don't have to do this. You could hide them if you want. I just don't need them distracting me from what we want to look at. All right, let's start off with the date column first. Remember FIBS, format, invalid, blanks, standardization. First is format. Let's format it as a date first. Check. Then we need to see if there were any invalid entries. Maybe somebody put February 30, for example, or they put letters inside the date column. So my trick is to check the filter on it, and if anything didn't fall under a complete year, then it wasn't recognized as a date. That means we might have, a weird order, like the day or the month is switched or something like that. So let's use text to columns to turn it into a date. And we'll make sure to select the format that's showing the proper order in order to reorder it. Okay, now we need to check blanks. Looks like we're all good there. Let's move on to S, which is standardization, and it's already standardized as all dates. All good there. Next, let's check the product name column in this example, but yours is probably a description column. Okay, format is first. I honestly just keep them as general instead of formatting as text, but you could do that here. Invalid is next, which would be any weird entries. And for text, you might actually catch these during the standardization step, so let's move on to B for blanks. Obviously, we can't just make up a value, so let's flag it to review later. Do a conditional format to highlight it red if it's blank, and that will, in a sense, flag it. And then we can double check it later on. This might happen if it was maybe an internal transaction or a pending transaction, so it's not completely filled out. Last step is standardization. We tend to have problems like it's all capital letters or funky changes between cases. Maybe there's unnecessary symbols or extra spaces at the end for some reason. Let's use the functions trim to get rid of any extra spaces. Let's use the function clean to remove any non-printable characters, and the function proper to capitalize the first letter of each word and make the rest of the letters lowercase. There may also be some inconsistent wording, like I've seen Ulta show up as Ulta or Ulta Beauty, depending on whether I bought it online or in the store. So keep that in mind for your own reports. Sometimes you'll see multiple versions of the same company. You won't be able to fix every inconsistently perfectly, but the goal here is to make it consistent enough to work with that we can actually analyze it. All right, on to the money column. We have prices listed here, but you might have amounts or totals. Those might be the column names. And you'll notice off the bat that we have some negative numbers, positive numbers, there's blanks and colored values. Right away, we know it's a little funky and needs some cleaning. So using fibs, That means we're starting off with format, so let's format it as number or currency. I personally prefer number. Now you notice that this got rid of those colored values. They're looking much better. Next is I for invalid. Now be careful here because the positive and negative numbers don't necessarily mean that the negative numbers are invalid. Some reports will show all money as positive, and some will show money spent as negative and money coming in as positive. So know which one your report is, and if your report doesn't use any negatives at all, then obviously a negative number is going to be a problem. So what you could do is you could flag it, and like we did earlier, we'll do conditional formatting for any numbers less than 0, and that will highlight it red for you to review later. Another invalid problem might be some letters used as cost instead of numbers. So to check that, let's use the simple isNumber function. If any are false, then that means there is something that is not a number. So you can look at that. Next is B for blanks. If an amount is blank, then we can't put in some fake number. You can flag it and then review it later on. So let's go to conditional formatting, highlight it red if it's blank. There we go, and that has flagged it. Right, lastly, we have S for standardization, which we've already handled by now. Now that it's all clean, you can use what you learned in the previous video to analyze this into a summarized income expense table by month. Or, as in our next video, you can combine this with other clean spreadsheets. Stick around for that one.